Welcome to a special edition of Buddycast. Where are all my Star Wars fans out there? Because I got a special treat for you. My personal buddy, Mike Quinn, who plays Nien Numb in Star Wars. How you doing today, buddy?
Well, thank you, Nick. Good to see you again. It's been a while now, hasn't it?
I know. I think it's been.
Yeah.
I think it's been a year at least.
It feels like it's been years and years. It's probably only been like 4 months or something, but it feels
Probably.
yeah. But it seems like so much and so little has happened all at the same time recently.
Especially with all this stuff going on, you know?
Yeah, but it's good to see you again, and thank you for bringing me on. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Everyone's a buddy here on Buddycast. So let's start out with the main question. How did you get on Star Wars?
Star Wars. How did I get on Star Wars? It was odd because it was kind of an easy transition for me. I mean, for Return of the Jedi, for those that don't know, that was my first Star Wars film, but it was my third movie. So we had already done The Great Muppet Caper and The Dark Crystal back-to-back at Elstree Studios for Jim Henson. And, of course, Jim and George Lucas were buddies anyway, of course. And Return of the Jedi was the third movie coming into Elstree Studios at the time. So, really, they just, we were all trained as puppeteers for animatronics and creatures because of The Dark Crystal, which was a new art form at that time. That was kind of a first. So it's not like they could have gone anywhere else to get people to do the stuff anyway, because we were the only people doing it at that time. Jim Henson kind of invented that sort of live animatronic puppetry thing. So basically, they just took on board a handful of us puppeteers. Dark Crystal finished, I think, late summer maybe of 81. And then probably a few months later, I had an interview with Robert Watts, the producer, in his office, just saying, hey, so, we're thinking about, we need some puppeteers and how's it going and all that sort of stuff. And it was just a little chat. And then that was it. And like beginning of January in 82, I was rehearsing with Tim Rose for various characters on Return of the Jedi. So I never auditioned for any characters. And even when I started the film, I didn't really know what I was going to be doing on the film necessarily. So I just kind of rolled on from one character to the next, and it all kind of evolved, really. They just kept extending my contract, and then Frank wanted me for Yoda, and Nien Numb came along sort of halfway through the picture. So it was an interesting time. I mean, I very rarely audition for anything, to be honest. I mean, because people know what I can do. I do very few auditions. But that's how Star Wars came about. Just I was already trained up and local, and I was cheap, and hey, it's a win-win for everyone, right? So that's kind of how it came about, really.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned a lot of work with puppeteering. How'd you get started in being a puppeteer?
Yeah, it's an odd thing, isn't it, to decide to do? It's very specific. There aren't that many people on the planet that say, I'm going to be a puppeteer and I'm going to make a career out of it and I will succeed and I won't have to get a proper job and all this sort of stuff. Well, I mean, I'd always liked puppets anyway as a kid, and grew up watching them on TV and the old black and white movies. And I had some toy puppets, marionettes and glove puppets as a kid. Had my own little booth glove puppet show that I did in parks and talent auditions and things like that. So I was kind of into puppets anyway, but I was also into Disney and animation and cartoons, and I would do a lot of drawing at that time as well as a child. But then in 1976, Muppet Show came along in the UK, and it hit big right away in England. So I kind of like really got into it like right away and thought, wow, what is this? This is crazy. This is nothing like we've seen in the UK. What's going on here? How are they being worked and manipulated? What's happening here? It was kind of revolutionary, and we didn't really have that much Muppets in the UK like you guys. We had less Sesame Street and other things like that. So we'd seen a few bits, but nothing like the Muppet Show. So I kind of set about trying to find out how these things, were built and worked, and I'd sort of start copying the movements and trying to emulate how they were working them, and would buy foam and fur and fabrics and fleece with my pocket money and try to make these puppets. So I kind of obsessed a little bit. How old would I be? Sort of probably from 13 onwards, I would say, 13, 14, and 15, during sort of the Muppet Show years, late 70s, basically, heading towards into 1980, way before you were born, right? So a couple of decades before you were born. Anyway, so that's kind of how I got into it on that sort of level, where it's like, I really want to do this. This could be a career, and I, at that point I didn't want to do anything else. So and then by sheer weird twists of fate, and this is often how one of these great cosmic things that keep happening from time to time. It's weird. I found out Muppet Show was made like half an hour from where I lived, which was odd because it was an American show, and I'm, in North London, So, and then my dad knew someone who was working there. His business had an interaction with someone who was working there, and that's how I got my first visit to the set of the Muppet Show in 1980. So I was 15 then, and from that point on, I would sort of keep going back to visit. I would just sort of bribe my way into the studio each time, literally with chocolates and cigarettes at 15, so I could get in. And it would always be on a guest star day, so I'd see all the big guest stars. On a Wednesday it was. I'd shoot like one show a week. And I'd go, maybe it was something like every other week or something like that, whenever I dared to return. And so they got to know me. I'd be a regular. I was kind of like the original Walter, if you saw the Jason Segel 2011 Muppet film, where they introduced Walter as the big Muppet fan, obsessing, wanting to. So I was kind of like the original real life version of him. And Muppet fan, obsessive Muppet fan. So all the puppeteers and the puppet builders in the workshop got to know me, and I'd bring puppets along that I built to show them. And Jim Henson would put some of them on and work them and stuff. So that's kind of, and that was sort of my next step, really, my next phase of getting to become a part of that company and what they did. So that was, and then I left school, and Muppet Show finished at the same time, and they went across the street to the film studios, literally it was like a high street, and the TV studio was on one side, film studio was on the other. And then they started making Great Muppet Caper, and that's when I said, "Okay, can I have a job, please, Jim?" And he said, "Oh, sure." So after a couple of weeks of, I gave him a job application. It was on his birthday, and he thought it was, I think, a birthday card. So, but 2 weeks later, I got a call from David Laser, the exec producer, saying, "Would I like to come along and do stuff for about a week?" And next month, that will be 40 years ago.
Nice. Congratulations.
It's crazy, isn't it? August it was. I'm pretty sure it was August of, if my memory is correct, which it probably isn't, but I'm remembering August of 1980. Could have been September, but probably August. And that's when I started. 40 years ago. And I'm still kind of doing it, which I love. I'm sort of... It was my first love, so, and I'm kind of hardwired that way to do that more than probably anything else, work and career wise. So I'm very happy when I get to do that, and I miss it when I don't. But, we're still doing, when we're not in pandemics, we're still working Muppets and making shows. We have the new stuff coming up on Disney Plus, 2020, the last day of July or whatever it is. So, which we filmed late last year, which was a lot of fun, really fun. We, packed a lot into the short shooting time that we had, but it's got human guests and stuff, and different kind of a show, but very silly and fun. And there was a trailer I think came up the other week, if some of you saw it, for Muppets Now, it's called. So it's like a 2.5 minute trailer. But if you haven't seen it, take a look because it's really fun. and it kind of gives you an idea of some of the things we do in the show. So, yeah.
Definitely. Now, let me ask, what Muppets did you play, if you're allowed to say?
Basically, the entire time. I mean, when we do other sort of side shows, sometimes, different, not main shows, I'll often get to do more characters, more of my own characters and voices and stuff. Whereas in the mainstream Muppet projects, I might do like incidental one-liners and assorted chickens and pigs and penguins and animals and that kind of thing. But what I've done the whole time, ever since 1980 through to now, has always been assisting for the principal characters. So I'd assist Frank Oz with Fozzie Bear and Miss Piggy, and often Jim would have me assist him doing rods on Kermit and hands for Ralph and that kind of thing. But then the other thing that is really important that they do seem to like to use me for is because I'm a good mimic. I can mimic the kinds of moves that each character has. So I often will double for the main principal characters. I mean, there's probably not, I can't really think of any Muppet that I've probably not really, performed at some point or other, to be honest. So each of the main sort of principal American Muppet performers have, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters each. And that's always been the way, even with the original performers. And so they can't work all those characters themselves at the same time, obviously. So then they bring in people like me to double up. So, like, for example, in the Great Muppet Caper, when Jim was in Kermit, he would put me in Ralph and for the wide scenes, and I would run the line in the wide scene, and then he may, come in and do it in the close-up, or they'd just overdub it later for the wide shot. So I became good at mimicking all the characters, but also all the puppeteers' styles. Everyone has their own kind of timing and the way they use just the kinetics of how the muscles and bones work together and stuff. They've all got their own style. So I've always tried to mimic that. So that's basically my job. I'm kind of like a utility Muppet, I suppose, which is fantastic because, I get to be on so many different projects, films and TV shows and music videos and commercials and not everyone's good at assisting either. Some people don't make very good puppeteer or puppet assistants, but they like to pull me in for Gonzo and for Kermit and assisting, which is really nice. So, I've got to do a lot of things, and I've really been very lucky, to be able to keep coming back to Muppets after all this time. And there'll be, as soon as this is done, we'll be doing some more as well, so which I'm really happy and excited about. So I can't wait.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you personally, what was it like working with Jim Henson?
Jim, I guess everyone kind of has an idea of what they think Jim would be like, right? And how you kind of have a sense of him being this kind of tall guy, sort of soft-spoken, father figure kind of thing. He was all of those things, really. I think Kermit was, in some ways, an exaggerated version of Jim, sort of trying to pull all these people together, all these crazies, for this end goal, for this, end thing. And Jim had a way of sort of bringing out the best of everyone. Everybody wanted to do their best for him. And that was sort of just a magical quality that he had, one of his special gifts. But he was very, very approachable as well. Even when he was directing big movies and stuff, or he was super busy, he was always approachable. And he always cared about all the people that were working with him and around him and under him. And he appreciated what people could bring to the table. He would let people, he wouldn't try and control everyone and say, he wasn't like a control freak puppet master or anything where everybody must do it exactly this one way. He was almost the opposite of that, where he'd be like, this is the kind of thing we want to do. Have fun with it, make it your own, show me what you've got, see if you can get it to work, and he was very open to suggestions and creativity and was a very calm influence. And also he just loved to have fun too. I think he was his happiest when he wasn't, in an office behind a desk doing business contracts and mess and horrible stuff like that. I don't think he really that he had to do some of that, but I don't think he really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think when he was on set, he could be a kid and play with puppets and have fun and fool around and laugh and cry and sing and dance, and I think that's when I saw him at his happiest anyway. So
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's kind of what he was like. What you'd think he would be like, he was, and then some. And more, I think. So
Absolutely.
yeah, he's missed. If he were around, we would have seen so many more projects and films and TV shows and characters and ideas and worlds and techniques. He was always looking ahead and trying to push the technology and what could be done, different materials, different worlds. So he was always so far ahead. So many. He was looking decades ahead sometimes. So. That was the great loss, that we lost what he was going to bring for us all. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he'd be happy with what's going on today with the Muppets?
Actually, I do. I think he'd be very happy that, Muppets weren't his only thing, and that's what people sometimes forget. That was one part of thing that he enjoyed doing, and it was great at that particular time. But then that enabled him to do things like the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and Storyteller and whatever else he was wanting to do. So he wasn't like so precious about Muppets that, it must be sort of preserved in this, formaldehyde forever and never change. He was all about evolution and bringing in new characters and new puppeteers and just, letting things move on and forward. So with that in mind, in that context, yes, I think he would actually be very happy that people still care about Muppets, that they're still enjoying them and wanting more, and that also he'd be very happy that we're all having a job. He wanted us to work and be employed and have good lives, and I think he'd be happy on that level as well. It's interesting, isn't it? Not just the what the Muppets are doing themselves for the general public, but for us too. He'd be happy for us that we're having a good time in his world that he created. So
most definitely. Yeah. What was it like working with people like Frank Oz? When the
Frank's great because he's very technical. So he'll do a lot more takes and when he needs to, but he'll work things out very methodically, and so he's more like he approaches characters to me. Because also he is a director, a good character director, and his characters are great. So he always approaches his work as an actor, I think, and plots everything out, which was what helped us so much when we did Yoda in Return of the Jedi. We rehearsed every little beat, every movement, every moment, every glance, every pause, for days until we got it just feeling just right, and we could all just plug in and do it, over the few days it took to shoot it from all the different angles as well, so we could match what we were doing. Whereas if he just made stuff up as we went along, it just wouldn't have been as considered and wouldn't have matched from angle to angle and all that kind of thing. So he'd always write backstories for his characters. So like Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, and they all had a backstory that we didn't really hear about why they were the way they were, but also, for the three-dimensional characters, what their weaknesses were, what their, needs and wants were as well, what they, what motivated them. So that was more sort of Frank's, I think, mind behind his directing and writing and performing, and Jim was more broader. He was more about just creating the world and how one kind of faction interacts with the other. To a point on the Dark Crystal and also Labyrinth, but especially Fraggle Rock. We all become better when we work together, and I think that was a bit of that was sort of an overarching message from Jim, I think, in his projects. So Jim was, I think, maybe more of a bigger picture kind of guy, and he'd just come in and have fun and play and make it work. So in a way, they were sort of a bit like a real life Ernie and Bert, where Ernie is playful and fooling around and just kind of laughing and having jokes. And Bert's like, no, it must be this. We must do it this way. And it has to be very, regimented. And that's why they complemented each other so well too.
So they were as close as everyone thought they were, and everything like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very much so. Absolutely. Yeah. Jim took Frank on when Frank was quite young, and shy, and Frank was too shy to do characters and voices, so he'd assist Jim. And he nurtured Frank, and they had a lot of respect and a lot of love for each other. And that's why Jim had Frank co-direct The Dark Crystal with him, because he knew that Frank wanted to go on and do directing. And so he knew that this would be a way to help Frank sort of ease into that and get a directing credit. So that was a gift that Jim gave to Frank. I don't think Jim needed Frank to co-direct with him, to be honest. But he did that for Frank so that Frank could have a directing career. That's the kind of guy Jim was. And, I saw Frank again a few years ago at the last time I saw him was at the Last Jedi crew premiere, in LA. And we were talking about how everything that I had learned in those first few years with Jim and Frank, I'm still using that knowledge and information now, and how appreciative I am of what they both gave me back then. I mentioned about my puppetry academy that I have now, how it's sort of a legacy of what those guys taught us, not only through the jobs, but also on workshops on the Dark Crystal puppetry workshops that Frank was also a part of. And Frank just turned to me and he said, "Oh, it's all Jim. It's all Jim." He just deferred all credit to Jim. He wouldn't accept that, he was an important part of that as well, which he was. But he just said, "It's all Jim." So, Frank kind of was, I guess he feels he owes everything to Jim. I think that was what he was sort of saying. So it's interesting, isn't it? But yeah, they were. I mean, obviously very different people, but together they were very powerful. Oof. And funny.
Oh yeah,
very funny, very yeah, really good. So I think Frank did a lot of creative consulting as well for Muppets, So Jim would sort of let him make a lot of those decisions because it was often too much for Jim alone, I think, when the company got bigger. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now let's move on a little bit. You said you've done some animation work before in the...
Yeah, computer animation. In the 90s, I had a puppet company in the UK from about 89 to 90 to late 90s with Dave Barclay, who performed Jabba the Hutt and other things. So we had our own company there where we were making puppets for other companies and for ourselves, and we produced our own TV shows as well and did a lot of commercials. But there was one project that we started to develop, and it was like 90, 91, 92, I think. And it was the first time we had an animatronic head, but we could record all the servo motor movements on it on a computer and play them back, with a trigger. And that was the first time that had ever been done in an animatronic live creature. Henson didn't even have that at that time. So that was sort of our first inroad into using computers and, to help with our puppetry. And so you can kind of get the best take, back in the office or the studio before actually going on set, So for lip sync and that kind of thing. It's kind of interesting. So, and then a bit after that, I'd gotten some early Macs and was fooling around with ways of making like a puppet wink in post-production where it couldn't do before, and using morphs, and morphs was like the big new thing. So I was trying to morph different puppet faces together and paint out rods and using puppets full length so we could see them interact with other backgrounds and that. So I was kind of using computers in that way, that early mid-90s, I was mid-90s. And then Toy Story came along, and I sort of saw that as, in a way, they were kind of like the new Henson in a way. You know, they were using new technology to tell new stories and new characters in new ways, which was exactly what Jim did. So I saw a parallel with Pixar and Henson, Muppets. So basically, I've been doing a little bit of animation stuff at home, you know, learning principles and just basics and stuff, but and how the coordinates work and all that kind of thing. But I got myself recruited at a London computer festival where Digital Domain and all the big companies, Disney, everyone was there. Every year they'd come, but Pixar came to recruit. And so I got myself recruited in 96, it was, I think, late 96. And then finally went over there early 97, went to their Pixar University where there was like about 12 of us in a class at Pixar for a couple of months or something, 8 weeks, I forget now. And graduated Pixar University and then started on Toy Story 2 as a character animator. So Toy Story 2, A Bug's Life, and then after that was a few years, 2.5 years, I think it was. Then I left there and went briefly to just for an interim period of time to animate some Hershey's Kisses commercials in San Francisco when they went to CG and, you know, instead of the stop motion. And then ILM, and the main reason I wanted to go there was because I knew that they were going to do the first CG Yoda, and because I mimicked Frank and knew why Yoda moved the way he did because of the way Frank held his hand and all that kind of thing, I knew that I could be of some use to them for Yoda. So I went to ILM and got a job there animating. But again, ILM had their little sort of training room that they would put people in for a little while so you could learn their software and methods of pulling in match moves and backgrounds and all that, you know, all their stuff, basically. So everyone would go through there first. But I hadn't finished my training in ILM when someone had left Jurassic Park 3 to go and work on a James Bond game or something, and they were a person short. So I got pulled out of training to animate dinosaurs on Jurassic Park 3 for 6 months. And then after that, went on to Attack of the Clones, and they're already halfway through production at that point, halfway through animation and post. So I didn't get to do all the things I wanted to do on Attack of the Clones, but I had fun doing dinosaurs. So so yeah, that was kind of my animation. And then a few years later, when would it be? Yeah, late 2000s. I got into I was like lead animator for a couple of game companies for a while because I thought, well, the game industry is a big industry and I haven't conquered that one yet. So why don't I just do that for a bit? So I worked in the game industry for another 2 to 3 years in Texas, working on some MMOs and doing motion capture for different animation states and that kind of thing, you know, using some of the new tech that was coming out at that time. And I'm actually, a lot of stuff got, you know, at that time, it was right when we had the big crash, 2008, whenever that was, and Japan had its big tsunami. And so one of the games we were working on, that company closed down because they were Japanese. It was for the Japanese, and so they shut down. So that never got finished. And another one, the company had to get rid of half of its staff. So I got let go when that happened. Everything started shrinking down. But I think the only thing I've actually did that got released was we downscaled the Rock Band 2 for the Wii. So I actually have a credit on that. So I guess it was originally made for PlayStation or I don't know, some larger res platform, I guess. But then they sort of downscaled it for the Wii system. So Rock Band 2. So I'm actually credited on that. So that was my game experience anime, and I haven't really animated since. I don't think as such. I don't think. Yeah.
Nice.
Some experiments. You know, some of my own private projects. I fooled around with some stuff, and I will be doing some more later, but not necessarily 3D CG animation.
Nice.
Another kind.
It sounds like you've been all over the place, from Pixar to Star Wars to Jurassic Park to even Hershey Kisses, you know?
and back again. And yeah, but it always comes back to puppetry. It comes back to the hand, the soul, working the puppet, and performing live. It's a living cartoon, which is what I like. Real time, instant gratification. You can take it anywhere. You can work it on location or in a studio. Right here, I can do stuff. It's great. In my little studio, I can set up a screen and shoot stuff. So it's amazing. It's a great thing. I think everybody should become a puppeteer, actually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me ask you, what are you up to today?
What am I up to today? That's an interest. I'm actually working on some graphics today for a future project. So yeah, working on my Wacom tablet and my screens, and every day I do a little bit of learning too, though. And that's sort of been my MO in the last few months. So I like to work with music a little bit too. So I've been learning music production and mixing and that kind of thing. Because I want to use that in my own productions in the future as well, in my own songs and covers and that kind of thing. So yeah, a little bit of that. I try to mix it up each day, but usually it's creative stuff. But yeah, looking ahead, looking to the future, and lots of planning. There's a lot of stuff that hasn't been done yet. That's the thing. There's so much we have yet to do, and there's so little time. So I keep busy. I haven't been bored. I've been locked in this place for nearly 4 months now. It's going 3.5 months, however long it's been since March. Not as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty much still in lockdown. I go to the shops and the post office once a week since I've been doing my autographs and things. But that's it. Yeah. So, but I haven't been bored because there's just so much to do. I have all these different projects that I bounce around, and because I have different things, I don't get bored with just the one thing. I don't get stuck in a rut. So when I need a break or I get excited about something else, I can jump onto another project or another part of the brain.
Yeah.
So in a way, when I have to go back to work again and traveling the world and doing conventions and performing in shows and stuff, I won't be able to do all this stuff anymore. So so there is for me, there's an upside anyway to this. But it would also be nice to get back to working again and performing with my buddies. And, hopefully there'll be more Star Wars stuff too, of course. They had to shut down because of all this. So, yeah, and more Muppets. And we would have probably been doing Kidding season 3 right now with Jim Carrey had we not been in this in these viral times. So it's it's been hard. It's not been easy. It's just like it hasn't. How about yourself? How have you managed?
I've managed. I'm working for a news station right now, so I still have a job.
Thank goodness.
And recently, that's why I created this Buddycast.
Yes, nice. Well done. That's exciting.
Yeah,
it's really great.
A lot of people are going to have time on their hands, so let's reach out to them and see what's going on.
Yeah, see what's going on, exactly. See how everyone's coping, and how can we still move forward when we feel like we've just been sort of had we just met a brick wall, but barriers can be broken, just like we've had to break through barriers even before this happened, you and I both. And we will again. This is just a different kind of a barrier, but if you can just keep pushing forward, even though sometimes it feels like you're just hitting that brick wall every time, sometimes there's another way around it, or over it, or under it, or through it, or some other way, different direction.
When you keep hitting it, sometimes you're softening it,
That's true. Yes, my head gets softer every time I hit it into that wall. But that's the thing. You have to, you just got to keep pushing forward, and it's the people that give up are the ones that don't succeed, right? I mean, that's the thing. So if you want to succeed, you kind of can't take no for an answer. And that's how I got to work with Muppets. No wasn't going to be an answer for me. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a puppeteer. And not doing that, it wasn't an option. So a lot of it's just mindset, and just being very clear about what you want and figuring out how to get there. It's like, I want to get here. So how do I get from where I am now to where I want to be? And just what are the steps I have to do? And sometimes it doesn't always work out and you have to pivot and figure new stuff out. But if you really want that, you can actually get there, even in pandemic times. So it sometimes just takes a bit of focus, some research, some thinking, some synchronicity, fortuitous timings and meetings. But the universe sometimes provides that for us if we ask for it sometimes, when we're ready, when it decides that we deserve it, I guess. So, I think we still have a lot of control and power, even though now sometimes, people are struggling right now.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about it. So, you and me, we met at a Comic-Con years ago,
Yeah, we did.
So
it was great.
Yeah,
people thought you were that guy. They thought when I go off for a coffee or whatever or lunch, be like, "Oh, are you him?" You should be like,
no, you just stepped away for a minute. I'm just watching the table, make sure no one steals anything.
Yeah, no.
I should have told him, yes, I am, and just found a way to mimic your signature or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's so brilliant.
Like $20 in my pocket.
But that was fun. That was a nice show. That was good.
Most definitely. So from shows like that, or from like your acting career, do you have any like feel good fan stories, like any fan interactions that have left that impact on you? Like I remember when we worked together, I remember one girl coming up and she had tears in her eyes. She's like, I never thought I would ever meet someone from Star Wars,
Oh, is that what? I thought she had tears in her eyes. Oh God, he's so ugly. I can't stand it. It burns my eyes. It burns my eyes. No. Okay. It was either one or the other. I mean, stuff like that is, but I do get it though, because, I'm a fan too. And I like to connect up with people that I enjoy their work with, that I've done. And, so I collect autographs as well, so it's great because I understand it. For me, I think the stories that I like to hear the most are when, like say, for example, a father, more often than not, it's guys rather than women. I'm not quite sure why that is, but anyway, they come to the table. But a father will come to my table and say, I was, 9 or 11 or whatever when I first saw Star Wars in the theater, and now here's my son, and he's the same age I was when I first saw it, and he's into it too, and we're going to see the opening night of Force Awakens or whatever whatever the newest film is that's coming out. And it's such a great thing because it's sort of it's universal and it transcends the age groups, and it's just a great piece of family sort of almost timeless entertainment. So, and who knew back then that might even be the case. I don't think even George could have imagined this far ahead, really, that it would still be a thing that people cared about and would still be fresh, and that families can enjoy and share together, So, because there's not much out there right now that can be shared with parents and children that they can both equally enjoy. There's not a whole lot, is there? For dare I say, wives and sisters and mothers too. It is sort of universal. So it's pretty amazing, I think. And and for me to still be working in that franchise again is amazing, and I hope to do more. But it does enable me to do things that I could not have done otherwise, and to go to places I wouldn't have gone to, and to meet people like yourself that otherwise I would never have met. And we're still buddies, and we'll always be buddies.
Oh, absolutely.
So what a it's just one of those good things that happens in the world, and we need more of those. We need more of that.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, you touched on it a little bit with like the Muppets and everything. Do you have any upcoming work that, maybe after COVID, or like any projects that are coming up that you're allowed to reveal at this time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I say, we got the Muppets now coming on Disney Plus end of this month. But one thing that we're gonna, I think, release is Dave. You know, when I said Dave Barkley and I had a company in the UK, during that time we made a TV series in England that wasn't really seen by very many people. It was a low budget puppet show that just had 5 characters, and Dave just finished archiving and digitizing and upscaling that stuff from the old formats from the 90s. And so we're going to sort of re-release that and to puppet fans and just let people enjoy it. And we'll enjoy seeing it again too. It was, a long time ago now. So I guess 25 years or something. I don't know. So yeah, I think so. So yeah, that's one thing that we're going to be working on is re-releasing that stuff. I'm in development of a lot of stuff of my own too, though. So I've still got my Stan Laurel documentary that, in fact, those tapes are being digitized at the moment from when I shot some stuff. So they're in Los Angeles right now, getting put onto hard drives so I can start putting that together. So that's another thing, something I started a long time ago, but didn't really have the money to finish, So,
Absolutely.
So that's good. Yeah, lots of things like that. But then, all the filming is going to kick in again, and I'm not going to have time for anything. There'll be hopefully Star Wars, Muppets, and goodness knows what else, and then all the shows, of course. I think we're going to see a boom once this is well and truly over. I feel like everything's going to explode again, and everyone's going to be ready to do stuff and go places and have a bit of fun and get the money moving again. And I think there'll be a boom time for the entertainment industry, and I'm sure I'll be nonstop, doing conventions and shows and filming for probably for a few years. Then I'll be ready for another break, I think. But it's coming, so I'm trying to rest now, not go too crazy, because I know that there's gonna be a lot of stuff. Maybe a year from now, or who knows. I'm not quite sure, but yeah,
Most definitely. Now I'm going to end with this question for you. I ask this to all my buddies who come on the show.
Okay.
What's your advice for someone who's looking to go into items like puppeteering, acting, animation? What's your ultimate advice for people who are looking to go into the same work that you're going into?
Yeah. Well, if they specifically want to go into puppetry, then they should join my Secrets of Puppetry Academy, which is online, and they can find that through me, because I've got a special discount going on right now as well. So, but that is a bunch of tiny little steps of things that I wish that I'd had when I was starting out that didn't have, and it's stuff that Jim and Frank taught me, and I'm now putting it online. So I would say if someone wants to actually be a puppeteer for film and TV, that's like as good a place as any. You can go at your own pace, learn online. It's great. So for puppetry, that's a good place to start. But in broad terms, whether it's puppetry or singing or anything creative, let's say, I can at least speak for that. Performing arts in some way, in directing, producing, writing, photography, whatever. Be clear about your focus. You do want to be really, want it really, really badly. You want to do it a lot, I think, to succeed, because it is going to be hard. So make sure that it's something you really want. Be careful what you wish for, because if you're going to put all that energy into it, you might as well be sure that it's what you really want to do, because everything you do is hard. And to do it well, you have to dedicate a lot of time, focus, and passion. But however, something I would say would help is to put yourself in front of people that are doing it in the nicest possible way. Be a squeaky wheel, like I was. It worked. It still works. I still do it to this day. I still make my opportunities. I don't get everything handed to me on a plate because I did this thing once or something. It doesn't work like that. I'm always putting myself in front of people or saying, hey, I can do this, and are you interested? Or if I don't know them, I'll find someone who does know them and ask for favors, and so don't necessarily work in isolation. So if you want to be, for example, say a stand-up comic, then maybe you should be around places that do that, and absorb that yourself into that world, and know people who do that for a living, and people that book those shows, and just become part of that world, because eventually you're just going to become one of them, right? If you spend enough time with them. And it's the same with acting, but don't go solo, because I think that's the hardest thing of all. So, and right now, at least online, we've become really good at connecting up online, even if not in person. So I think people should try and do that. I'm happy when people contact me and message me and say, how do I do this? Or how can I, people don't ask enough questions. I wish people asked me more questions, like, how can I become a puppeteer? Or how can I learn to do, or how can I make this kind of puppet? Or, I wish people asked me more stuff like that. But surround yourself with people that do that as much as possible, or people that know people who do that, and just keep pushing. Every decision that you make should get you a little bit closer to what you want to do. Keep learning, learn your craft. Like, just, it's no different to playing a musical instrument. You have to just keep leveling up, keep working at it, and a lot of it becomes muscle memory, basically, and technique. So with acting, anything else, a lot of it's just technique and muscle memory, so that then you can just enjoy doing what you do and not think about the technicalities. And you want to get to that point, and the only way to get to that point is by hard work. You've got to be motivated. If you're not motivated, you're not going to do the work, and there's going to be 10 people ahead of you much better than you. So, and you want to be, one of those top people. You just got to keep practicing your craft. Another thing I would say, probably the final thing, is do more than one thing. Don't just do one thing, because when that thing isn't happening, how else are you going to earn money? Or and also, it's good for the brain to do, like I just mentioned earlier, I do multiple things because it's good for me. And if something goes quiet in one area, I can still focus on something else and still have some sort of career or income or whatever. So learn like yourself. You've done many things, and you're doing multiple things now, and so I would say, multiple strings to one's bow is also a good thing just to be aware of. But like I said earlier, don't give up, because the people that give up are the ones that fail. So
most definitely. So keep moving forward is what your ultimate advice is.
Even if it feels like you're not, you actually are. Nothing ever is static. Sometimes it feels like we're just getting nowhere, and it's just not going to happen, and nobody likes us, and it's dead, it's gone, and that isn't nature. That's not reality. Things are always shifting, things are always moving. Glass is always slowly melting, over a period of time. You just can't see it. So nothing is ever static. And energy, if you put energy into something, it has to go somewhere, doesn't it?
Most definitely. I should thank you so much for joining us on Buddycast. Thanks for being a buddy.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your patience in getting us to sync up across the ocean to make this happen.
Oh yeah, I know you and me have had at least like 5 different reschedules.
Yeah, but hey, we got and that's the thing, because you didn't give up, you made it happen. So you could have just said, screw it, I can't be bothered, and then it wouldn't have happened. But you see, you're a perfect example of what I just said, and here we are. So there we go. But I'll see you again soon, I'm sure. When I'm back East Coast. Yeah. If
you're ever in the area, let me know.
For sure, definitely. I'll see you again, and we'll continue to talk online in the meantime. But thank you so much. Absolutely. I really appreciate it, and continued success with your show.
Thank you.
And I'll see you again soon. Thanks so much.
Definitely. Thank you for being on there. Thank you to all my buddies out there. And remember, go out there and be a buddy to someone. So we'll see you next time.